This episode of the Marketing Podcast is brought to you by Neighborhood Domains. Every business needs a domain name, including yours. Visit neighborhooddomains.com and use offer code MARKETING to get 10% off hosting and domain registration.
On this episode, Mercedes Super Bowl ad never left the garage. What's with Lady Doritos? How much does a government tweet cost? And an influencer and a hotel are having a feud.
Creativity sells. Applying the right creative at the right time is the recipe for great marketing. The Marketing Podcast looks at marketing news and finds the secret ingredients that make great marketing.
Welcome to the Marketing Podcast. I'm Brendan Quigley.
And I'm Heather Watson. How you doing, Brendan?
Excellent.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's an excellent day.
Yes.
Nailed it.
Nailed it. Do you ever make mistakes?
I feel like this is a trick question.
Just asking the
I
question.
have fixed all of my mistakes. Yes, of
Sure.
course.
Sure. Today we are talking about things that maybe shouldn't have happened, that did happen, that could have happened, that would have happened, that maybe if people had a second chance, they'd reel it back in or do it a little bit differently. Because I think we're all there as people, as businesses. Sometimes you just make mistakes. Some are more costly than others, like Mercedes-Benz.
What did they do?
Our friends at Mercedes-Benz, actually they're not friends, they're not enemies.
But you could be a friend, Miss Mercedes-Benz. If you want to sponsor this podcast, just send me a DM.
We would totally
Thanks.
be friends of Mercedes-Benz. So this came out of a Mobile Marketer right after the Super Bowl.
What's that? I'm joking.
Good. So Mercedes-Benz had a mobile Super Bowl contest that never left the garage, which is a brilliant headline, by the way. So the way that it was supposed to work was they had a mobile app contest that basically had, they were going to launch it during the Super Bowl, and you'd have to keep your finger held on an image in the app of a Mercedes AMG C43 Coupe. And whoever would be able to keep their finger on that image the longest would win the car, the prize, whatever it was. However, they ran into technical difficulties right beforehand. There were some server problems, and they tried to fix it, and they couldn't. So they ended up kind of stuck. They weren't able to run the campaign. As a result, though, they converted that contest into a sweepstakes, so anyone who had registered for the game would still have an opportunity to play the game, and they would just do a general draw. But what they did lose was the goodwill and the pizzazz, because lots of people would see the game, like the contest on the game, and be exposed to that, even if they weren't engaged in playing, right? Like,
Couldn't you just cheat?
Well, you got to keep your finger in
Couldn't
contact
I
with
just
your phone.
make something that goes on my phone and I just set my phone down?
I don't know. Does it move?
How did they? Yeah, maybe it moves. Maybe it moves. Like it's an actual game.
Like an actual game.
Okay.
Yeah. I recall, this is going back to the 80s, and I was so young. There was a big car dealership in Toronto, and I know exactly whose car dealership it was. He ended up being a transportation minister with the government years later, Al Palladini. And he used to do a contest every year where you would basically go to his car dealership,
Yep.
and have to put your hand physically on a car, any car in the lot, put your hand on it, and whoever the last person standing was winning would hold on to it. And this was a big thing. Like,
Wow.
like Toronto news media outlets would come and cover to see who's still standing.
So this is like the digital version of that.
Totally digital version of that, right? And like I think they had certain rules because, like, what if you have to go pee, right? Like, there's like real things that happen. And people would fall asleep, and what is always kind of riveting good news. They just lost it. Like, it happens. Servers crash. Things go down. Things don't go as planned. And it's unfortunate when it happens to anybody. You'd think a big brand like Mercedes would have it together, but even the big brands mess it up. Unfortunately, maybe somebody lost their job, right?
Sorry.
Yeah, yeah. And they were pretty humble about it, right? The quote from Mercedes that they had put out to registrants in the contest, thanks for your enthusiasm and willingness to participate. Unfortunately, yesterday didn't work out as planned. We ran into last-minute issues related to servers, and although we tried to solve the problem and restart it again so everyone could still play, the issue persisted. We're sorry to have kept you waiting.
But I mean, I guess you almost have a better chance of winning the car. Because it's a sweepstake now, right? It was a pretty good pivot, as pivots go, and it's only registered users. Good job. I think that was good.
That was good. And I mean,
would you have played?
I didn't even know it existed.
But it's down in the States. But would you have done the how you're watching the Super Bowl? How do you?
Well, I wasn't watching the Super Bowl. I was just watching the ads. But I don't know.
I don't think I would have.
Because I mean, at one point in time, I think that night I went to bed at 10:30.
There you go.
So I would have
with your finger taped to your phone.
Something. Yeah. Yeah. So no, I would have lost interest quick, but it would have been kind of fun.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. Happens to the best of us. What's next on our mistakes? Oh, please tell me it's this one.
Oh yeah, it is.
Is it? I haven't even pulled it up. Tell me which one it is. Oh yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so this is a good story of when you say something before you've actually kind of vetted it with everybody else on team. Do you want to tell the story?
No, you tell. It's
okay.
Far better.
So this is coming out of the Star, which is out of Toronto, no less. So the CEO of PepsiCo, who has been CEO for 10 years or so she's not new at this, Indra Nooyi, I think her name is. She was on a podcast, Freakonomics, which many people who listen to podcasts such as ours would be familiar with Freakonomics, and talked about products and saying that, women have different needs and tastes than men. And they don't like, when it comes to chips, they don't like to crunch too loudly in public. They don't like to lick their fingers generously. And they don't like to pour little broken pieces and the flavor into their mouth. Speaking about Doritos. You're laughing.
For the record, I do not like to generously lick my fingers.
Okay, good.
I'm just going to come out and say that.
Okay. So after that came out, there was a phrase that was trending on social media called, quote, Lady Doritos, because, we're just too ladylike to eat Doritos in those ways. So the CEO then went on to say later off the podcast, but on the record, that the company is, quote, getting ready to launch, unquote, snacks that are, quote, designed and packaged differently for women. Women love to carry a snack in their purse, she said. What?
I got nothing.
So
I like to carry snacks. Whatever. Keep going.
But do you have a purse?
I have my bag. My bag.
Your satchel.
It's kind of like a I would love if there was a snack in there right now.
Yeah, there's snack-sized Pringles.
There you go.
And little chip bags and
for
cracker
airplanes.
bags. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, even snack-sized bottles of booze for purses. Isn't that what they're for?
That's what they're for. I think they're called lady booze.
Lady booze.
Is that what they are?
Maybe.
Because they fit in the purse?
Maybe.
I don't know.
So it's interesting because, of course, all kinds of products are different, male or female or non-gender, and they're golf clubs, right?
Yep.
Golf clubs for women because they're shorter, lighter, better fit for our curvature,
cologne,
whatever,
perfume,
shoes.
Yeah.
But when we get into things like this, it gets a little strange. And this is the CEO, so she has authority.
Yeah.
I mean, if she wants to say it will happen. But they quickly reeled it in when it went awry on social media. And this is where, when mistakes happen, how do you fix it? And PepsiCo, after the fact, said that the interpretation of her comments to mean that female-friendly Doritos were in the works were inaccurate.
You mean they just closed up shop?
Yeah, perhaps. Or maybe it was just taken out of context. And then the company, and I love this, and I'm so glad the company said this line and not somebody else on social media. I'm going to quote this fully, quote, "We already have Doritos for women. They're called Doritos," end quote. And I'm glad it was the company that said that.
That's the takeaway though, right?
Yep.
Like if you've got a product or a business or a service or anything, there's very little chance that it's that you need to brand it for male or female. It'll be very obvious if it's a man's shoe or if it's cologne or perfume. Like, you don't need to go out of your way to take something and rethink it for the opposite gender.
Sure.
We see this kind of thing all the time. The pink Bic pens that came out because women need pink pens, or like the, this is good, I'm going to get you on this one, but like the pink guns.
Oh my
that
gosh,
are like pink
so
camouflage.
Right.
It's like, why?
Pink camouflage shouldn't be a thing.
But we don't
Number
need to
one.
reinvent camouflage for women because camouflage is normally a man's thing.
Yeah.
Just let camouflage be camouflage.
Yeah.
Let your product be your product. And if it happens to be that more women like your product, great.
Yeah. Yeah. And as a woman who has gone out into the woods with appropriate reason to wear camouflage, I can tell you firsthand, nothing would you hunt or fish or explore in would you ever be wearing pink camouflage. So it's like, let's turn it into like camouflage. People like camouflage. Let's make it pink and the girls will like it too. And I know there's a lot of women who like pink camouflage, and none of those women, I hazard to guess, actually hang out in the outdoors.
That, or they don't use their pink camouflage as camouflage. You know what I mean?
Like to be out in the
this
outdoors.
Is it, exactly.
Yeah, no, exactly that. They're wearing it to the mall, and that's okay, I guess. But why?
Exactly. Yeah. And so it's one of those things where it's like after the fact, you're like, oh, look, the demographics show us that this, and these people like our product. So you market to those people. But you don't go and like rethink a product because you think it needs to change for the opposite sex.
So there's some fundamental marketing principles here that I'm going to touch on, because really it comes down to your product and how you're going to grow your market share, right? And there's a few core ways of doing that. One is to just pound the heck out of your marketing and make sure that your product is in everybody's hands or anybody reasonable. When you've already exhausted that, you start looking for new uses of your product.
Totally fair, yep.
And it could be, hey, did you know this cooking spray is also really good for these 101 other things? Make the snow won't stick off stick on your shovel, or that kind of stuff. And you start. I think WD-40 actually does a really, really good job. If you search online for all the things you can do with WD-40, they have a list of all the things you can do.
But there's no like man's WD-40.
No.
Yeah.
But they've gone after so everybody in the world who needs our product knows our product exists.
Mm-hmm.
Now we just need them to use our product more. So let's show them ways that they can use it more or differently, because I would only use WD-40 when I'm sticking it in a lock that's jimmied, but I didn't realize it could get tar that's stuck on the back of my car off, or goo off my cabinets.
Like, do you think this is an example of a company trying to improve in an area where maybe they're doing poorly? I don't know if women don't buy Doritos. I don't buy that. But
so interestingly enough, this is PepsiCo, and I have a friend who used to work in this company specifically. This is the same company that has put out kind of, I can't remember what the contest was, but basically you could create your own chip. Right, and it was a contest, and
flavor.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Make your flavor. I can't remember how they tagged it, and then they would the winning one. You'd get these blind bags, and whatever had the highest sales, that would be the flavor of the year. And they were disgusting flavors, and none of them have ever ended up. There was only one flavor that actually ended up being a flavor that's still on the shelves beyond the campaign.
Cool Ranch?
No, it's like sour cream and bacon or something like that, potato and bacon or loaded potato or something. And so they don't mind investing heavily in just trial. This is a company, right? It's we'll just see what it's out there, what people like. I mean, this is Pepsi, clear Pepsi. Somebody reminded me about a blue Pepsi product. The actual product was blue, right?
Yeah, okay.
And people's tastes change. And if they're not, part of it is they're just trying to get a little bit of maybe better product placement on a shelf, or stand out from the competition, right? Crinkly bags are crinkly bags, so let's make them pink, and nobody else's are pink, and now it'll stand out. I mean, I hate to say that out loud. I hope they never do that. But this is marketers ruin everything.
But it wouldn't be so bad if they made it pink to stand out as pink, but it's the turnaround to label it. These are now, woman chips.
Well,
instead of.
But I don't think that they would have this was social media came up with the term,
Right.
Like the people came up with the term Lady Doritos. So that wasn't their beta test on naming, but it could have been less crunchy, just as tasty. I don't know.
Yeah, right.
Right. And
right.
and as a woman, if that stuff mattered to me, I'd be like, oh, I'll give those a try because I find the other ones hurt my gums.
Yeah.
It's like my Barbie voice.
Yeah.
So I mean, how they market it would have been differently. Lady Doritos, I mean, to PepsiCo's credit, that wasn't their name on it, right?
Which is just a warning for anyone who's thinking that they're going to remake their product.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Make sure it makes sense, right? And that it's not.
Do it for the feature. Do it for the product, not for the. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. What's next?
This one's equally awesome. So this comes out of CBC, so Canada's news agency, and the title is "Health Minister's Twitter account highlights cost of government tweeting." So basically, the labor-intensive project requires 1.5 staff plus overtime for 50 tweets a month.
Awesome.
Like 50 a month? Okay, we'll get there. So very quickly, they created a Twitter account for Canada's health minister, and it's costing taxpayers more than $100,000 a year in salaries and overtime for the bureaucrats who run it. I believe there is a 12-step approval process for posting a tweet.
Yep, it takes 2 weeks to plan a tweet.
2 weeks to plan a tweet.
Yeah.
Gosh.
So, I mean, this is always the fine line, and I have worked in government. I was working in government when Twitter was really just kind of starting to pick up en masse. And the government that I was involved with was very afraid of all things social media. This would have been 2010, 11. And they were like, oh, no, we don't want to comment on Twitter or anything because people might respond to us. And that's a bad thing in their minds, right? And we need to create a policy on how we're allowing engagement. And what if somebody tweets us sensitive information? And how do we deal with that? And what if they say bad things about us? And all those things, which were real concerns for businesses then as well. But government is still stuck in this position where it's always about on message. And of course, Canadian government, we have 2 official languages. So every post, the government is mandated by their own laws that they should be in English as well as French. So it has to be translated.
So I guess really is that 50? That must be 100 tweets then, just translated.
Sure.
Yeah.
I will give them that benefit, maybe. So it's a fine line, right? Like how much policy and bureaucracy and red tape do you have to go through now in that an ecosystem, it's so programmatic that it's not adding value to the end users. And we see this in the numbers, right? The health minister herself has more followers
twice as many
than the ministry.
Yeah.
And the health minister, because she's the politician, she's not bound by the same rules and regulations that the bureaucracy, the administrative branch of the government, is responsible for. And therefore, I mean, really, if she says something completely inappropriate, like Lady Doritos, then it's
boom.
Yeah, if she says something completely inappropriate, then it's up to the citizens to really show their discourse with whatever she or he may say. And in that case, that if the minister or any political official isn't all that great, and they won't get reelected, or they'll be forced to step down if they're completely off course. Yeah. Unfortunately for our friends to the south in the U.S., their political leader, president, nobody can really do anything with him. But boy, he's fun on Twitter.
I think the big takeaway here is this is not how to do it.
No, you're right.
You don't pay $1,000 a tweet, which is about 100 tweets. Yeah. That's a month. So it's less than that.
Yeah, and I think over that, I was reading, I'm just trying to find it. It's a great piece, and we will share it on our website at themarketingpodcast.ca in the show notes. But I think they said, over that year it costs to manage the account, they only put out, you said 50
tweets a month is what they're doing. So far they've issued 250 tweets.
Right.
since they started.
And I
since
think
they
I saw a
started
number.
it up.
There was like basically each tweet cost around $6,000 or something like that.
I think after work hours and weekends costing 1.5 employees dedicated to the task, with after hours and weekend work costing about $6,500 in overtime so far. Like, this isn't the way to do it. Like, we've talked before about automating, and it's not like, this would be a good example of where automation makes sense. If it takes 2 weeks for your tweet to vet, stick it in the queue, have it go out. Like, these aren't up to the minute updates. These are, public service announcements, and that goes to show too, like, I would argue that likely this Twitter account isn't worth running. The whole thing about Twitter is you're getting the instant information.
Exactly.
You hear sirens in your town, you check Twitter and someone's tweeting what the sirens are about, like that's the function of Twitter. And now we're talking about context for Twitter. What's the function of Facebook? What's the function of Instagram, of Snapchat for the health minister? I really do believe that Twitter is that place for instant response. These posts might be better served on a Facebook account or page or group.
Where there's more longevity.
Exactly. Or a blog. Like, whatever.
Yeah. The irony of this whole thing is, not only did it cost this much money, but considering the amount of lead time and planning it took, they actually billed a whole bunch of overtime.
Yeah.
Like, why, if it takes you 2 weeks to get a tweet out, then why do you even need to stay late at work and put in those extra 2 or 3 hours?
And I think the argument is because someone will respond after hours and they need someone who can respond back to them.
Sure.
But I mean, like, I don't know, the customer service has used Twitter in so many great ways where they say, these are our hours, we'll respond to you between these hours.
Yeah.
If you're a business, there's a couple things. Tweet with proper grammar and tweet about things that are happening
in real time.
In the now.
Yep.
And that's really where you're going to get the best traction with Twitter. And don't be afraid to tweet at or to someone or respond to something.
Even DM.
Yeah. And you don't have to be, like, witty. You can just be yourself.
Yeah.
Done.
Twitter
strategy. I just wrote it for you.
Yeah. Be honest, be true.
Yeah.
If you have a 12-step program, get out of Twitter.
Yeah. Basically. Yep.
Yeah. Moving on. This one is amazing too. Oh my goodness. So there's a feud. And when I thought it was over, it continued, and it's amazing. So it could still be going on.
Probably still is going on.
So this is from Mashable. And this was everywhere when it first broke, but the follow-up is on Mashable. And again, we'll post the link to the full story, and there's videos to go with this, so you'll want to tune in for this one if you haven't heard. So basically, there's been a feud going on between a hotel and a YouTuber / influencer. In short, just to catch you guys up, it all started where basically the White Moose Cafe in Dublin, Ireland, shared an email that they received from a vlogger, Ellie Darby. Now, the vlogger had suggested a deal where the hotel give her free accommodation in exchange for publicity across her YouTube and social media channels. Now, I did check out her profile, and she seems to be like a legit influencer in terms of her reach. Not my style of branding. Like, personally, I wouldn't I'm going to turn to her for all my, fashion and travel things. But some people might like her. Some people do like her. So basically, the post went viral. Her name was discovered. The hotel, in fairness, had blanked it out to protect her identity. But someone was able to put 2 and 2 together and, actually they just turned the brightness up on their screen.
Contrast.
Oh, contrast. So then everything went south from there. The vlogger responded with a video, and then the hotel hit back, and both parties were being trolled by each other's fans. Then the hotel turned around and issued a blanket ban on all bloggers. And it was a fun example of the internet at its worst, as Mashable says, which is true. And I mean, I watched her rant, and I could only really listen to her for the 30 seconds, and I went numb. And then the rest of me, I was just watching for another 2 or 3 minutes because it was like a train wreck happening,
The other thing I think is really funny is the White Moose sent out a fake invoice to just capitalize on all the publicity that was going out. so the fake invoice was going to the influencer, and it said the provision of features in 114 articles across 20 countries with the potential reach of 450 million people.
Right. And it was like a $4 million invoice.
$5 million
Invoice. There you go.
$5 million euro invoice.
Right, right.
That's including the 23% VAT. Wow, I'm glad we live here.
Yeah. There you go.
But what I think's just hilarious about the whole thing is, in the end, everybody probably won.
Yeah.
In terms of publicity?
I think so. I mean, there was like all kinds of extra stuff. There was a fake press conference that came out.
Yeah.
There was merchandise that came out. And then now, most recently, as of, the recording of this podcast, who knows what's going to come out between now and then. I hope this thing ends soon. The vlogger is making points. I think she's feeling a little beat up, and she wants to defend herself now at this point in time. And she has gone on the record on her vlog saying any business owner is more than entitled to refuse a business proposal. My issue was not with the idea that he had refused my stay, but with how he had reacted. And really all he needed to say was no in an email or ignored. Instead, now I'm getting death threats and cancer wishes.
Yeah, and that's the internet being terrible.
Yeah.
The other thing I'd like to touch on is, I don't know this influencer, but from this story, she's not the kind of influencer that I might recommend. Someone who's going to trade free stays for posts. You almost, I'm going out on a limb here, but you want to have the influencers that are sharing the things that they genuinely agree or like, or fits their personal brand.
And that's where it kind of started, right?
Yeah.
Like in her first vlog, when she was defending this whole situation, she kind of said, like, basically me and my boyfriend were thinking about taking a trip to Ireland, and I thought I would see if we could get some sort of accommodations for free. And she was offering this service, and she legitimately has a service, and this is her business, and this is how she makes money, and this is what she does.
It's not like she had stayed there before and it was so good that she was like, I wanted to blog about this, and they were like, well, thank you so much for the reach, quote unquote. We want to give you something in exchange. Or she didn't go to them and say, you know what, we had such great service, I'd like to do this service for you.
Yep.
Can we exchange? It was like, I want to get a free stay.
Yeah.
And I don't want to assume too much of her, like what her intentions were, but
yeah, it's true. I mean, it seems a little snake oil-ish when the vlogger or the influencer is reaching out to you saying, I really want to feature your products on my vlog. I mean, that's how sales work in anything, period. Somebody's got to make the offer and let's negotiate and figure it out. But my advice to any business on this particular type of arrangement would, if you are actually looking to get some kind of influencer reach, you should be doing the research. Mm-hmm. Within your industry, within your space. In this case, it's a hotel. If you're a hotel, you should know who the travel influencers, the travel blogs, where people are going that are promoting those type of experiences, and reach out to them and say, I would like to invite you to, and this is what we can offer, and do you do this, and are you open to doing that? Because then you're in control of those negotiations, and they're still allow them to still have that journalistic freedom, if you will, where they can say if they had a bad time, they're going to say they had a bad time, but don't go the other way around. And that's just my guide, because I feel like the other way, it's just going to be somebody looking to get a free ride.
And if someone does approach you, ask them about the demographics of their audience.
Absolutely.
Because you can figure these things out, and make sure that the demographics of their audience lines up with the demographic you're trying to hit.
Yeah, but like you say, Brendan, I think they both won, because they've come out, like, they've got huge supporters. They both have equal amount of haters, and I'm sure in both respects, the traffic to their respective vlogs, websites, whatever, have skyrocketed. Yep. For better or for worse, and in either case, that's saleable. So there you have it.
That's it.
That's another show.
We're not in a feud.
We will
free stay at home.
Continue to make mistakes.
I will post Twitter posts about it.
Pivot once in a while. Awesome. Well, certainly join in the conversation. Follow us on Twitter. Tell us what you think of any of the stories that we've talked about today at marketingpod_ or on Facebook at The Marketing Podcast. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the show at themarketingpodcast.ca. For The Marketing Podcast, I'm Heather.
And I'm Brendan.
Thanks for joining us.